In the autumn of 1940, Europe was already burning. Poland had fallen, France was defeated, and Britain stood alone against Hitler's Germany. But far to the south, in the Balkans, a smaller drama was about to unfold, one that would shake Mussolini's fascist dreams and force Hitler himself to divert his armies. This was the story of Italy's invasion of Greece, and the heroic but tragic struggle that followed. Benito Mussolini, the Italian dictator, had grown restless by mid-1940. His Axis partner, Adolf Hitler, had conquered vast territories and stood triumphant. Mussolini, who imagined himself as a new Caesar, could not allow Italy to remain in Germany's shadow. He sought glory, a quick and easy conquest to showcase Italian might. His eyes turned to Greece, a small nation across the Adriatic, neutral but strategically vital. Greece controlled sea routes in the eastern Mediterranean and had resisted Italian influence for years. To Mussolini, it looked like a perfect target, an easy victory that would rival Hitler's triumphs. From Albania, which Italy had occupied in 1939, Mussolini massed divisions along the mountainous Greek border. Confident of success, he and his foreign minister Galazzo Ciano convinced themselves that Greece would crumble in days. Yet they ignored warnings from their own generals that the terrain was unforgiving. The weather was turning harsh, and the Greek army, though small, was highly motivated. In Athens, Prime Minister Ioannis Metaxas led a regime that was authoritarian but fiercely nationalist. He understood that neutrality could not save Greece from Mussolini's ambitions. The fateful moment came on October 28, 1940, at 3 in the morning. The Italian ambassador to Greece, Emanuele Grazzi, arrived at Metaxas's residence. He delivered Mussolini's ultimatum. Greece must allow Italian troops to occupy key strategic points or face invasion. Metaxas, a reserved man, listened calmly and then replied in French, "Alors, c'est la guerre." Then it is war. Word spread rapidly through Athens and across the countryside. Instead of fear, there was defiance. Crowds poured into the streets shouting "Oxy, Oxy." No, no, it was the beginning of what Greeks still commemorate today as Oxy Day. The day a small nation chose to resist against impossible odds. At dawn, Italian forces launched their invasion across the Albanian frontier. Mussolini had expected a swift march to Athens. Instead, the Greeks fought back ferociously. In the Pindus Mountains, Greek units held the line against better-equipped Italian troops. The terrain itself favored the defenders. Narrow mountain passes, heavy forests, and steep ridges turned modern warfare into a soldier's nightmare. Rain turned roads into mud. Snow blanketed the high ground, and Italian tanks found themselves useless in the rugged landscape to the astonishment of the world. The Greek army did more than resist, they counterattacked. Within weeks, Greek divisions pushed the Italians back into Albania. Towns like Cork fell to Greek hands, and Mussolini's troops suffered humiliating defeats. Scenes from the front became legendary. Women from mountain villages carrying supplies, ammunition, and even artillery shells on their backs to the soldiers at the front. It was a national effort of survival, and for the first time in the Second World War, the Axis had been stopped. The victory electrified the Allies. In London, newspapers hailed the Greeks as heroes. Winston Churchill himself declared, "Hence, we will not say that Greeks fight like heroes, but that heroes fight like Greeks." For a brief moment, Greece stood as a symbol of resistance, proving that the Axis war machine was not invincible. But Mussolini could not tolerate defeat. During the winter of 1940-41, he reinforced his armies in Albania. Tens of thousands of troops were thrown into the mountains, but the result was stalemate. The Greek soldiers, though exhausted and poorly supplied, held their ground. Conditions were brutal. Soldiers froze in trenches, food was scarce, and disease spread, yet morale remained unbroken. Italy, by contrast, faced falling spirits. Mussolini himself visited the front in March 1941 and launched what he called the Primavera Offensive, a massive spring attack. It ended in disaster, with heavy Italian losses and no breakthrough. For Hitler, the situation was alarming. He had little interest in the Balkans at first, but Mussolini's failure changed everything. British troops had landed in Greece to support its defense, and Hitler feared that Greece could become a launching point for Allied operations against his planned invasion of the Soviet Union. The Balkans had to be secured. Thus, he prepared Operation Marita, the German invasion of Greece. On April 6, 1941, before dawn, German forces struck. Elite units of the Wehrmacht, backed by tanks and dive bombers, poured across the Greek border through Bulgaria and Yugoslavia. The Greek army, already drained from months of fighting Italy, now faced a far more formidable enemy. The Germans bypassed strong defenses in the Metaxas line with rapid flanking maneuvers. Blitzkrieg tactics that had crushed France were now unleashed in the mountains of Greece. British and Commonwealth forces, including Australians and New Zealanders, fought alongside the Greeks, but they were too few and too late. German air superiority was overwhelming. Within days, Thessaloniki fell, and German units advanced rapidly southward. Athens was declared an open city to avoid destruction, but it could not be saved. On April 27, 1941, German troops entered Athens. The Acropolis, a symbol of Western civilization, now flew the swastika flag. Greece had capitulated. The country would endure a brutal occupation by Germany, Italy, and later Bulgaria, marked by famine, resistance, and immense suffering. Yet the story did not end with defeat. The courage of the Greek resistance delayed Hitler's timetable. The diversion of German forces to the Balkans forced him to postpone Operation Barbarossa on the invasion of the Soviet Union by several crucial weeks. Some historians argue that this delay contributed to the German failure before Moscow's gates in the winter of 1941. In this sense, the defiance of Greece, though crushed, had global consequences. For Mussolini, the invasion of Greece became a lasting embarrassment. Instead of a quick victory, it had turned into a humiliating failure that revealed the weakness of Italian arms. For the Greeks, though conquered, the memory of October 1940 remained a source of pride. Against overwhelming odds, they had said no. They had fought and they had inflicted the first Axis defeat of the war. The legacy of those months lives on. Every year, Greeks remember Oxy Day, not as a story of conquest, but as one of defiance, sacrifice, and unity. It is the story of how a small nation stood against a dictator's ambition, and though eventually overcome by greater forces, left a mark on history far larger than its size.